Welcome to episode 16 of the Damo Pod. We are joined here with Trenton Jones. Trenton, good to see you, brother.
Nice to see you too. Back, glad to be back on the pod.
Back to back. We started off, Trent was on the first one, you were on the third one, and here you are back at 15 and 16. We'd say, yeah, you didn't come on for a bit. Oh, you're on the sixth episode. And then I started to do it in person at my buddy's house. Great setup. And then recently with work and stuff, it's just been a bit more difficult to have that. But I wanted to keep it going, you know? I want to keep doing it because ultimately it's just if we can get our buddies on, our friends on, keep just a consistent conversation, weekly, bi-weekly is very important to me. And no matter like where we are in regards to work or life, I think it's important to continue to talk about what matters, God, and what we're thinking about things so that we remain anchored, like we're not our own islands. We're not just making decisions by ourselves, like we are surrounded by friends, sometimes family, you know. So that's why I think it's important to do this regularly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so with that being said, Trent, do you have any interesting insights or thoughts that have been on your minds this past week in regards to purpose or your own path in your own career, where you're headed, or reflections that you've had on your life recently?
Hmm. I don't know if I've had any super profound insights. Um, but there's that saying that how's it go? Like it's all about who you know. So I think that ties in pretty well with the whole idea of having a community and having relationships with lots of people. And I, there was a book I read recently. Um, I think the title of it was something like "Don't Talk About Politics," written by a leftist feminist lady. But she used this term called social capital, which I think is kind of a cynical term because it's a very economical kind of way of looking at, hey, I can leverage my social networks because I know this guy over here and he can do this, and I know this gal over here and she can do this for me. It's a very like I say, kind of materialistic and cynical way of looking at interpersonal relationships. But I also thought I was like, no, that's not actually a terrible way to think about it though, because like I think we think we have a lot more social capital than we do because it's easy to have a lot of friends on social media and a lot of followers, but when it comes down to like, hey, if I call you at 3 a.m. in the morning because my car broke down on the side of the road, like how many people are gonna like come and help me or do something to help the situation however they can. And like I can only count like on maybe one hand like how many people I would call in a situation like that, so yeah, I think that it just today I got an opportunity because I do construction for HVAC, so new install, when someone's building a new home or renovating a home, I got to go in there with a crew of guys and, put all of the nuts and bolts in, put all your duct work in, slap a system up there. It's a lot of hands on, heavy lifting type stuff. But that's not what I want to do like forever. It's a good place to learn. But I want to do more of the repair, the troubleshooting and sales and stuff like that to that side of things, which is a different skill set in the industry. And today, one of the service techs has got like a slight injury and just needs a guy to like help just with like basic stuff like lifting some heavy objects, handing him tools. Like he can still do his job 90% of it, but he's just, he needs a little helping hand. So they were like, well, his normal guy that helps him out is sick today. Trent, why don't you go do it? And I was like, and we like hit it off. I've never really like talked with this guy other than hey dude, how's it going? Good morning. Like that's basically the level that we've been at. And today we hit it off, and he's like, man, if I was making decisions, you would be my guy. Which so it is a lot of you find a lot of opportunities to like not only in your career, but it's like another thing too. It's like we've talked about dating and relationships a little bit in the past, and like um it's kind of a it's kind of a desert out here for a Catholic guy, especially a traditional Catholic guy, and the buckle the Bible belt. I'm surrounded by nothing but evangelicals. um so and it was through some friends that I got a number and have been having some good conversations and text messages, and it was all through just like somebody I knew. So the moral of the story is that social capital, as long as you use it for good and not for purely selfish means, is a good thing. So use it. It's kind of like money. Use it. Just don't just be wise about how you use it.
Would you?
And yeah.
Wait, so is this the first time that you've realized that to a profound degree at this point in your life?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's an obvious thing, but I don't know. I've always been like a very like independent and self-motivated person. So and I think like technology and stuff like that we live with makes that easier. Like if you're the autodidact type, you want to learn something. Back in the day, it's like, well, you either had to find like a teacher, you had to find a journeyman, you had to find a guru, you had to find somebody who knew and was willing to work with you. And that's, that's difficult to do, right? Whereas now, like, for example, let's say you want to learn guitar. Well, just order one on Amazon and watch YouTube videos. And you can get pretty far, but wind back the clock like, not even 20 years ago, and like that wasn't an option. YouTube didn't
Right.
exist. Amazon was selling books, not instruments, and if you lived out in the middle of nowhere and you didn't have a guitar center or a music store near you and some studio, like you're just kind of out of luck. So I think that um for me, like I hate asking people for favors. It's not like a pride thing so much as it's like I don't want to inconvenience you because I don't want to feel all needy, like, oh, can you help me, sir? Blah blah blah. When I can do like I used to have anxiety about just like talking to an employee, like at a store, like, oh, I can't find this thing. There's a person over there who, stocks inventory, and I would like do everything possible not to bother that person. But then I worked in retail for, almost 4 years, and I was like, people ask me this all the time, and I'm like, it's my job. So A, I'm supposed to do this, and B, it's not a big deal. Like as long as you just ask politely, and say, "Oh, hi, excuse me, sir. Can you help?" I'm happy to help you. It's like no big deal at all. So it's just goofy stuff like that. That's more of my introverted personality, I guess. Some people it's not an issue. Some people are all about it, and I'm more of just like, if I can do it myself, I don't know what that is. We can get all psychoanalytical and be like, do I have some sort of repressed negative memory and trauma about asking for help? I don't know. I haven't thought about that, but
That's funny. That's funny. So where this person that you're talking to, have you met this person?
are you talking about my coworker today?
No, the one that you said somebody hooked you up with somebody's number and you've been talking for a little bit.
I've met her in person one time.
Oh, nice.
Hmm.
That's cool. And so has that made like your life more easy in a sense? Like do small things that used to kind of make you anxious or concerned not bother you as much, 'cause you have this person that you're talking to?
Yeah, I mean it's very beginning. We're in the talking phase, so I wouldn't jump to any like I'm not gonna say anything like it's not super serious. We're just casual right now, which is fine. But I mean it's good because like it gives you thinking about somebody else and you're but it's also cool too that someone else is thinking about you, you know, and that's kind of like a I don't know, it's a comforting thing, and it's a mood booster, and it's like, and it's weird for me because it's like, you know, like obviously like I know my parents love me, you know, I know my siblings love me, you know, and it's like, but you just kind of take that, and you should, in a healthy family you should take that for granted to a certain extent, right? Like
Yeah.
parents should care about their kids, siblings should get along reasonably, you know, like I expect that, you know, because that's healthy and normal. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. But when it's like a complete, not a complete, but you know what I mean, like mostly a stranger that you have no ties to, and you know there's no reason for them to like go out of their way and be like, "Oh, how's your day going?" It's like, "Oh, that's kind of a nice feeling. Somebody cares about me for really no apparent reason." So that's cool.
That is cool. And you're right, there definitely is a difference between just feeling loved by your family or feeling cared for by your family and then somebody who's not your family, especially when it's like a girl, for example, if you're a guy. And that's exciting. And I asked the question about if you're less troubled by small problems because it seems to be the case that when you are thinking about somebody else, like you said, like small things don't bother you as much because your mood is boosted naturally. And yeah, this is my first time hearing about what you just mentioned. And I'm curious to see like where it goes. I know, like you said, you're just talking and stuff, but is this person like also of the same faith, like Catholic as well, or?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's pretty safe to say our viewpoints and faith are in alignment. So that's also kind of novel for me because all of the ladies that I've tried to date have not been of the same persuasion. So that was a challenge, but you know, I wouldn't say that like I was in any like super long relationships either to where like that got to fully play out, but it was always something in the background. And I think it just kind of comes down to morals. Um, because, you know, we live in a day and age where it's like after the first or second date, like everyone just kind of expects you to hook up. And I have to break the news and be like, so I like you and I think you're very attractive, you know, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do this thing. And sometimes and I've had mixed reactions. I've had like, oh, okay, cool, I'm totally down with that. And then like, you know, the more time, especially if you're spending time alone, it's like, yeah, you say that, but then like your actions are going down a certain path, and you kind of have to play like, okay, like how much of this can I like like it's this is the thing with flirting, right? Flirting is always about like kind of like innuendo and like pushing boundaries here and there one step at a time. So you kind of have to be careful. You have to be careful, guys. So this is different for me because well, A, it's long distance at the moment, not super long distance, but like we're not in the same town. So I
So
can't
how long
just
are we
like
talking? Like half an hour, or what?
it's just been texts right now. I hopefully like but long text. We send each other novels half of the time. Like in text form, so it's kind of funny. But you know, hope to actually like maybe do some phone calls or do video chats like this and slowly ratchet it up, and then you know, if things keep going good and you know opportunity arises, I might be making a road trip. Who knows? So, but yeah, we're just playing it slow and casual, which is another thing I'm not used to because a lot of my relationships kind of like start up like 1 minute we're just like coworkers, you know, and then the next moment, boom, we're like dating. Like, there's not a whole lot of like in between, like slow, like it's just boom. That was my last relation. My last relationship was with a girl that was a friend of. So I live with two roommates who were married, and it was at their wedding last year, and I knew this girl, through my roommates, just but in group settings. We would like go, like, they had the bachelor, they did a joint bachelorette party, and just other things, so she was around, so I like had talked to her, met her, and only like talked one on one like one time with her, just kind of randomly. So we knew of each other, but we weren't like, hanging out or doing a whole lot. And then after that wedding, we was just like in the reception, it was like, okay, boom, now we're dating. It was boom boom very quick. But that's a whole other stories.
Dude, that's so funny. You're a man of surprises because, as you said, you're more introverted. But when it comes to dating, Trent's he's there with 0 to 100 in a good
Yeah, I'm
sense,
I'm a
not in a
romantic. What can I say?
you're romantic. Yeah, dude, that's funny. Well, that's
I,
super cool, man. I didn't.
I
Yeah,
say I'm introverted, but I think the more and more I don't know, learn about myself or grow, I don't know what, but I find that it's like I'm not really introverted in the sense that, like, oh, I don't want to talk, or I'm not this super stoic guy that just sits there. I'm not gonna ride in the car with you saying nothing. Like, that's just awkward. But in a group setting, I don't stick out. Like, I don't try and be the center of attention. There's usually like conversations, and I'll like sit there, kind of like be a wallflower. That's why I hate bars. Like, going to a bar to pick up women, like, not even in like the worldly bad sense, just like going out to meet people in like in a good way. I hate it. I don't know why. I just feel like you got to be peacocking, or you got to be like this big, like, loud, obnoxious kind of guy. Whereas, like, one on one, I'm great. In a group setting, good luck.
dude, that's hilarious, Trent. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I was in high school, I would think the same thing. One on one, that's where I thrive. I enjoy it. It's meaningful. But the moment you're in a group, it just seemed more fake. It seemed less real and genuine. And especially the bar scene. If you're trying to go and have a genuine conversation with somebody and get to know them more, good luck there. But that's funny what you said about yourself. One on one, you're great. You can talk a lot of depth there. But if you're in a group, especially in a bar, like you're just gonna sit there. You're not really gonna engage because, like, how do you engage meaningfully when there's a bunch of people there drinking?
Yeah, no, it's difficult, especially when they're like strangers. Like, if I've gone in groups where it's like, okay, at least I know some people and they're friends of friends, like, at least that's like a way. I don't know, like, it's kind of like the whole like red pill pickup artist thing, where it's like there's been this. I was watching my alter ego, Trent Horn, the Catholic Answers apologist guy, and he was talking about like dating culture, and he was saying, like, yeah, all of these people online talk about like mastering the technique of the like, what is it, cold calling, like when you just go up to strangers, and you're just like, hey, can I have your number, not in those exact terms, but that's the goal, and you have no idea who this person is. And his whole point was like, when you think about it, that's I mean, yeah, that can happen, and that's fine if it does, but that's not really natural. That's not how most relationships work, because, back in my day, we had like friends and we would go do things. And so, like, yeah, you might not know this person or work with them or even have class with them or whatever, but like at least they're friends of a friend. So you're not a complete stranger, and your social group kind of helps you vet people, which is nice, because like if they're friends of, say, I have a close friend and they have a friend that I don't know, well, I can confide in them and they can say like, oh yeah, you guys, I could see you guys working out, or they're great, but I don't think you two, which was like another thing. Like, there was another friend of a friend of my roommates, wife, and I was like, she seems pretty cool, and she's like, oh yeah, I love so and so, but yeah, you guys would never be able. Oh, you shouldn't do it. I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, no. I was like, okay. So I mean, again, social capital, guys. Like utilizing that social capital might help you like not waste time. And I don't mean waste time like don't ask people out, but like like there are some people where it's like, yeah, if it's a snowball's chance in hell that things would work out, it's probably better you spend your effort somewhere where you got a slightly higher probability.
Yeah,
So,
but what if somebody's like, I wanna find that one, I wanna be in a relationship, I wanna feel loved, I want somebody besides my family to think about me and care for me. What do you tell somebody like that?
well, man, if I had all the answers, then I would be, but I don't know. I think that again, it comes down to you have to know yourself a little bit. So some people are too picky and some people are too open. I might fall into the category of too open because a lot of my relationships have been like, okay, like we might have chemistry. We can have a fun time. We can talk. We can go out and, watch a movie, grab dinner, go and go to the arcade, go to the mall, whatever, and like we get along. There's that. But then it's like all your values. What are you expecting out of your life, your faith, do you want a family? Those sort of things. Um which unfortunately like our views are almost polar opposite. The chemistry's there, and then that's a big stumbling block. So I guess number one is know yourself. Are you somebody that's too open and you're gonna go and try and find people that, yeah, you get along with them, but like you can't like make a life together? Or are you somebody that like you have 30 traits that your perfect person has to have? They have to have this color of hair. They have to have this view about work. They have to make this amount of money. They have to be 6 feet tall. They have to be, into this artist. This is my favorite band. And if they don't like them, then, there's these like dumb, arbitrary things that rules that we make for ourselves. So you kind of have to know which camp do you fall into, and then I think go from there. If you're too picky, then I think the trick is you probably need to date more. Like you do need to go for those long shots and then if you're someone who's too open, that's when I think use your social capital and confide in your friends and your family and people that you trust, and utilize like, if you go to church, okay, well, like a lot of people are going to know this person. You probably know of this person, or you go to school together. Those sort of things. So I think to go back to what I was saying about what Trent Horn was saying on his show was cold calls are usually a bad idea because you don't know anything about the person and they don't know anything about you. And even if you have basic chemistry, like the problem with that is maybe you guys like hit it off, but if you're really incompatible when it comes to your values, then you're just going to like set yourself up for heartache, which I've been there. It's not fun. And there's the drama and all that stuff, and you might find yourself writing a bad country song about how your girl left you at the bar with somebody named Josue.
Yeah, but what if somebody's like, Trent, I don't know what type of person I'm supposed to be with, what God wants. I just know I'm lonely, and I want some purpose. I want to think about somebody besides myself. And I've heard it told that when you fall in love, your life comes together. If somebody says that, And they're like, "Hey, and I'm trying to do all the right things, but it's just not clicking, you know? And I feel like God's not helping me out. I'm just kind of stranded out here. It's hard to find somebody good." What do you do? You just be patient and you just wait? You know, how active in the search are you supposed to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the thing is like we don't know God's will until God manifests it, you know? And you also kind of have to be dialed in, so to speak, to even pick up on when he manifests it. I know that sounds kind of hokey because manifestation and law of attraction, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm
Right,
trying to
right.
say is that yeah, God has a plan. We need to cooperate with it, right, to the best of our ability. But we get these ideas in our head like for me, I'm 27 going on 28, and I might be saying like, "Oh, if I'm not married by 30, I'm a failure." At the end of the day though, like where is that written? Where is that? Like where are we getting this idea from, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, that's a good point because I certainly would think stuff like that subconsciously at least, and I think a lot of people do. It's like if I'm not married, if I am not making this amount of money when I'm 30 years old, then I've failed. You know, I've done something
Mhm.
wrong, and then I'm going to be judged, and then I'm going to be unhappy. And then you asked, where do we get that idea from? Is that idea true? Huh, yeah.
And I think that that comes from just like comparing ourselves to others because I think by the time
Yes.
like you're in your especially when
Yep.
you're in your like mid 20s to late 20s nowadays, it's like you probably are going to feel like everybody you know is getting married. It's probably like the same phenomenon when you're like in your 60s and your 70s, like everybody I know is dying.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
funerals. So I feel like this is like you have like the beginning of adulthood. Like I know 18, legal adult, blah blah blah, but like we live in this culture where it's like adulthood is like delayed, delayed, delayed. We're children, basically teenagers, whatever, until we're like 25, for better or for worse. But I think that yeah, the beginning of adulthood, whenever that is in your culture, and I'd say here it's about 25, really. Um, yeah, a lot of people are going to be getting married. And but yeah, I know people, that were married, you know, like as 20, 21, 22 year olds, right? And then I know people that are getting married in their early 30s. So like but at the end of the day, it's like I don't see a correlation between happiness. There are people that got married young that are happy. There are people that got married later in adulthood that are happy. And there are people that got married early that are, not happy and,
Interesting.
vice
Yeah.
versa. So and I mean, like, the, the guy I want to say founder, but like so like the mission chapel that I attend was built back in the 80s, and the gentleman that funded and built the like bought the property, had the church built, very successful business guy. I don't think he was married until like he was in his mid 30s, and he was like a well-to-do guy. He was like served in the military. He was high ranking. He knew generals, like it, and his family came from a line of like business people. Like you would think like a guy like that would have been hitched early. You're like, wow, this
Right.
guy's a hot commodity, to
Yeah.
use economic terms again. But he didn't get married until his mid 30s.
Right.
um, I mean, look at our Lord. He didn't start his public ministry until he was 30. So it's like I'm not saying waste your youth, and just do
But
nothing
I
but,
think what you're helping out with is people who tend to get down on themselves and compare themselves to others and feel sad and anxious. And you're just saying, that's unfounded. That's not reasonable. That's most importantly, that thought process is not willed by God, because God was 30, 33, when
Hmm.
he began his, or 30 when he began his public life. Yeah, he was at home working before that. And you're
Right.
definitely right. But I know myself, Trent, a year ago. It didn't matter if people told me that. I'd still think and feel that I was not doing enough, that I was failing. So it's almost like you have to have the experience. Like you just have to be struck by lightning, metaphorically, to realize that.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not
mean, was
all the
it
time.
Abraham in the? Wasn't he like? I need to reference. How old was Abraham when he began? Yeah, let's see, married Sarah, sure, or no, left. Let me see, because wasn't he like 70 or something? Yeah, 75. Of course, yeah, I know. We're talking about, the patriarchs and people living a long time. We won't have to get into that. But like
Right.
he didn't
Yeah, I
start till
get
he
it.
was 75. So I guess the way I look at it is there's a good and a bad. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't even motivated, like not in hope, like okay, when you're like a kid, right? When you're like 10 years old, you're not thinking of like dating, starting a family, getting into a career. You're watching cartoons, eating macaroni and cheese, playing video games, going to, your friend's house for a sleepover. Like that's what you care about. And that's fine. You're 10. Like that's normal. I didn't even get like the desire to like date in any capacity until like I don't know, I think I was like 23, you know? And of course, like I'm growing up going to school, and like there are kids that are, even in high school that are like dating, middle school that are dating. Of course, that's a joke 99% of the time. But, there are still high school sweethearts. I worked with a
Yeah.
guy that, he met his wife while they were in high school. And that was the first girl he ever dated. And they stayed together and they got married, and I think have 3 kids. So, like, that happens too. But I'm like, I never had that drive. I just wasn't I was just like whatever. I'm just doing my thing, whatever it was
Yeah.
at the time. So, it's a double-edged sword because I think once that desire, whatever sparks that desire and wherever it happens, whether it's younger or older, I think that's there for a reason. I think that's built into our nature. It's God's design because it's like it's kind of a kick in the pants. It's a lighting a fire under your butt to get your crap together, right? Which means like working on your skill set, working on your career, becoming more responsible, thinking about the future, expanding your horizons a little bit, being less egotistical and selfish. And those are all good things. You're being more competent, not only for yourself, but for everybody around you, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your community, etc. That's all good. It's bad when it turns into that despair when we start creating those arbitrary goals for ourselves. And goals are fine, but it's like if you go to the gym and you're like, man, I want to be able to bench 250 after 6 months of training. And it's like, and you may hit that 6 month mark and you're only hitting like, oh, I can only bench 200, you know?
Mm.
And it's like, well, did you grow? Like, what were you benching at the beginning? And you're probably benching like what, 150, 175. And it's like, that's growth. You got closer. You moved the goalpost. That's a good thing. Like, focus on, and we lose sight of that. I lose sight of that too, because it's like, I'm not where I was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I've grown a lot, but that's, you don't want to become complacent, but at the same time, it's like celebrate, celebrate the wins.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's huge, especially for guys like myself. When you have that temperament or personality where you set a goal, it's an ambitious goal, and you're not quite achieving it, but you neglect to look at what you did achieve, the growth that did occur in you. And when you do that, you're denying like truth in a way. You're denying goodness, and the
Mhm.
result is always anxiety or regret, and it's just unhealthy and it's not good. It's like this poison, this disease that it's really hard for us to get rid of. And in a
Yeah,
way,
it
it's
for
it's
sure.
comforting to know that other people experience this as well. That you experience it and you're able to express it. That's one of the joys of having this community is expressing things like this and letting people know, young people know that like you're not alone. And it's fine to feel these things. Just don't give up, on trying, on persevering, and you will achieve what you were destined to.
Yeah, and it's I think we talked about this a while back about like cultivating hope.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the more I've thought about that, the more it's like part of that hope is like knowing that okay, like God is good, God is benevolent, and whatever God puts into your life is there for a reason. So you kind of have guardrails. Your guardrails are the Ten Commandments, the precepts of the church, like all of this stuff. We have these like boundaries where it's like, okay, don't cross those lines. But there's still so much freedom within that framework. It's like, what do I wear today? I could wear blue jeans and a polo. I could wear khakis and, a sweater. There's like and like, does that really matter that much? And it's like, not really. Like, so there's still a lot of freedom, and so it gives you a lot of room to like experiment and play around as long as you don't cross those, boundaries where things start, snowballing in a bad way, bad habits and all of that.
Yeah, what happens
So
when
I
that does happen? When somebody does start to snowball, and they want to stop, they want to return to their former self, but they're discouraged because they find it's harder than they envisioned. What sort of advice or encouragement would you give to somebody like that?
somebody who's like kind of like falling into like sinful habits or stuff like that, you mean?
Yeah, because stereotypically college years people, even good people or people that constantly pursue good, fall into bad habits, right? And they will lose their faith. They will leave their faith and they won't come back, at least not for a
Hmm.
long time. So when you have people like that who do recognize what they're doing is bad, they want to come back, but they also don't want to give up the evil. They don't want to give up the company they have in evil. Like, do you have, experience with people like that, or a certain advice or encouragement to give to young people who experience that?
Yeah, it's tricky because I think it's like, sin, you can kind of think of it as a disease in a way.
Yeah.
And there are colds that you might have the sniffles for a day or two. You probably can still go to work, not a big deal. There are flus, and then there's cancer, and then there's multiple stages of cancer. And then there's terminal cancer. So like there's levels for sure. So like I think it depends on where the person's at. Like if this person is at a point to where it's like they so like I know people in my life that I think have struggled in certain areas, and at the time they're like, this is bad, this is sinful, this is unhealthy. But rather than like, I don't want to say accept as in like okay, now we're just gonna like we're not going to treat, but like rather than just like accepting the humiliation, right? Because when you mess up, when you know something is wrong and you do something is wrong, it feels shameful, right? It's and you can either make an excuse and say that like, oh, what I did wasn't really wrong, or oh, because of these circumstances, blah 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 blah. You can make excuses and not take full responsibility, and that's a way of softening the blow. Or you can go even further and say like, actually, all of these rules and commandments and all this morality, this is all just arbitrary and made up. It really doesn't matter. You know, it's not real. What I'm not actually doing anything wrong. And at that point, you've kind of entered into the cancer part of the diagnosis, where it gets a little bit more serious. Because if when you get to the point to where you're thinking like, oh yeah, this and that I was taught as a kid, this is a sin. It's not really a sin. That's just an old wives' tale, or that's just some guy in a goofy, you know, clerical outfit that's just doesn't. He's just a prude and is making rules and wants to control me. You know, there's that kind of immature way of thinking. But I know people in my life that have kind of walked that path where they went to this, like, they feel this intense shame for things that they do, and they feel like they're not living up to the Christian moral standard that they ought to be, all the way to, oh, Christianity itself is false. It's just not
Yeah.
tenable. It's not real. And
So it
so
sounds
I
like from
guess,
what you're saying is like when people go down this path of sin, unfortunately, one avenue they choose is, you know what? God's not even real. And the reason they choose that is because they want to soften the pain that they are experiencing in their conscience,
hmm,
the guilt and the shame. They want to do away with that. And they think that if you get rid of the moral order completely, you won't experience that pain.
right.
And they know that they could get rid of that pain if they chose good, if they chose to stop this bad habit. But as we all know, it's not easy to stop bad habits when you're addicted to them. And it's easier, you think it's easier to give up God entirely. But like you said, sometimes it's hard to take accountability to admit you're weak and you've done wrong. But
I
you're going
and I
to,
think
yeah.
the remedy for that is, if you're in the kind of guilt shame phase where you're like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but I do. I'm a loser. I'm pathetic. I'm blah blah blah. You know, if you're in that kind of phase, because it's one thing, like, we all make mistakes. We all have our little slip ups here and there. We have our moments of weakness. And if that's something to where it's like, oh, I messed up, but now like I'm back in the saddle, you know, whatever, like I'm not going to do that again, or I'm not going to put myself in that situation. You learn from your mistake and you move on. That's, you know, that's normal. That's healthy. That's just part of, you know, living in a fallen world, and that's what we're called to do as Christians, is to get back up after a fall with God's grace, of course. That's not a big deal. Nothing really to worry about. Confess your sins, you know, do some penance, and move on, right? Learn your lesson. But if you're in that like constant struggle where it's like, oh, I'm good for a week or 2 weeks, and then, oh, I fell again and I did this, and you're in like a habit, I think step one is, okay, you still have the faith. You believe that God is good. You believe that God is merciful, right? He's willing to forgive you. So you kind of have to forgive yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dude, that's huge because if you're in that camp, it's so easy to get discouraged, because you just think people aren't merciful and they're going to judge you. And then you start to see God like that. You treat yourself like that. So that's a good point. I like that. If God's going to forgive you, you kind of have to forgive yourself.
Well, and I mean, just like on a human level too, it's like I've met so many people, or like just by watching podcasts, and, or we all, I'm sure almost everybody knows somebody that's like, say, a recovering alcoholic or a recovering drug addict. Okay. And it's like, these are people that went through really dark times of their life, struggling with this addiction, maybe just fully like they didn't even struggle against it. They just like accepted it, and they're like, I'm shooting up heroin every day. I'm drinking a bottle every day. And they just gave into it fully until they hit rock bottom or something. And they recovered and now they're living a life of sobriety, or they're on that journey, even they may still occasionally slip up, but they are at least like fighting that uphill battle and they're getting better. And on a human level, everybody that I have met and interacted with, like that are coming from that kind of background, like I'm happy for them. I'm celebrating that. Like I don't feel like
Yeah.
it's kind of empowering on a psychological level, and this is why I think for Protestants and people that are not really keen on confession. There's a lot of Protestants that are like, why do you have to confess your sins to a priest? I'm like,
Yep.
even on a natural like the reason why therapy works when you have a good therapist and you're going there, like you're not like BSing the system. You're actually there trying to work on yourself. When you're being honest and you're just open with somebody and say like, yeah, I've done this horrible thing, this horrible thing, this horrible thing, it kind of removes that burden from you. And it kind of, I don't know, it's a way of, I don't know if empowerment's the right word, but
It
you'll
does.
find that
Yeah.
most people give you a lot of grace. I mean, yeah, there are some people in your life that might be like, "Oh, wow, he was an alcoholic." Ugh. There are those
Right.
people, but I would say generally speaking, especially if they're your friends, a lot of people are going to be supportive and happy for you and be your cheerleader, and are not
Yeah.
going to be embarrassed because, oh, my friend, struggled with this in the past. Like most of the time people are like, and so like I'm not saying go up to people and just like unload on them willy-nilly, but like when you have that kind of rapport with somebody where you can just kind of like tell them like, yeah, I used to do this, or I struggle with this sometimes, blah blah blah, that can be like a huge relief when someone's like, hey man, I'm right there with you. I've done the same
Yeah.
thing in my past, or I'm struggling with the same thing. You
Yeah.
know,
No, for sure. That's lit. You can free the burden that you have from guilt or shame from opening up to your friends. And I want to end on that note because it's a very encouraging note. And it's a big point for why we are creating this podcasting community. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody expects you to be perfect. And yes, there's always going to be people who will judge, but people are going to give you grace because they also are human and they have
Mhm.
also and continue to make sinful decisions. And you know what? God does not give up on them. He has open arms for them. So he has open arms to you. And even after you sin, he is ready to forgive you. You just have to go to him and ask for it. And so, on that note, I want to say thank you, Trent, for coming, man. Do you have any last words of encouragement for anybody?
It's never too late, no matter how ashamed or guilty, or, it's like if you're really out of shape and you haven't been to the gym in years, or you've never been to the gym, it's like, you got to start somewhere and you're going to feel better afterwards. It's a little counterintuitive because at first it's a little painful, it's a little humiliating. But I mean, most people will tell you like they dread going to work out, but after their workout, they feel great.
Yeah.
So, you kind of have to bite the bullet for a second. You kind of have to take the humble pill, but you will feel the results very quickly afterwards, and then yeah, it can. God is good, man. God is good, and as long as you're breathing, you still got time. There's still hope.
It's
So,
never too late. It's never too late. Episode 16 with Trenton Jones. Thank you, sir.
thank you, Damian.